Hello and welcome to DesignOS. This is the first episode in the Tools of Figma series. So, the first thing I want you to do before we start getting to know the tools of Figma is change this background color that we have. So, if you can see here, the background color is set to E5, 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 which is like a light gray. What I like to do is change this to 20, 20, and 20. This makes it a little bit more black. I don't like the light color because it constantly shines in my eyes, so I usually change this to something like a 20, 20, 20, which is a black. This, however, is personal preference. You can leave it to a default color, or you can just click on this rectangle here which shows the color and change it to whatever color you want. I prefer to keep it 20, 20, 20. You can keep it at E5, E5, E5. So in this video, we will be taking a look at the top toolbar in Figma. I think one of the best ways to understand and confidently say that you know how to use a software is to go through all the tools and learn them one by one. This is the approach that we will be taking with Figma. So the first icon in the toolbar is the hamburger menu icon. Clicking on this reveals all kinds of options and settings. We'll go through all of these in a later video. So the first real tool is the move tool. If we click the little arrow next to the move tool, we can reveal the other tool which is similar to the move tool, which is called scale. We can also see the shortcuts that can be used to get to these tools quicker. If you press V, we'll get to the move tool. See, that changes. And if we press K, we'll get to the scale tool, like that. To be able to use these two tools, we need to make something to move and to scale. This gets us to the next tool, which is called the frame tool or the artboard tool. So let's click on the frame tool. Now I will get my mouse anywhere in this blank space, which I just changed the color of, and click on it. This makes a 100 pixel by 100 pixel frame. This also does a few other things. If you look to the panel on the left, it says layers here, and one of the layers is called frame 1. If we add a frame, a rectangle, text, an image, or anything really, it will show up as a layer in our layers panel. Creating the frame also gives us a fair few options on the panel on the right side here. This is the design panel, so let's take a look at all the different options that we have here. First thing is all the alignment options. These will be disabled for now because we don't have anything else to align this frame to, so we'll skip that for now. We have a drop down menu here that says frame. If I click on that, we can see that we are being offered so many different kinds of frames. We have frames for phones like the iPhone, the Google Pixel, and more. If we click on the iPhone Pro Max option, it will change my frame to the size of an iPhone Pro Max, like that. When you start your career as a UI designer, you will be working to create designs for real devices. So if you want to create a design for the iPhone Pro Max, you don't have to research what screen size frame you need. You just need to select it from this drop down list. It will also have a few other options like digital watches, tablets, desktops, paper sizes, social media sizes, and a few Figma community sizes. Just as a side note though, I will be using the words frames and artboards interchangeably for this series. Some products like Figma call it a frame, some products like Adobe XD call it an artboard. In the industry, you'll come across both of them, they're basically the same thing. If you don't want to create the 100 by 100 pixel frame, then select another size frame from the drop down menu, like the iPhone 8 or something like that. You can also go back to the 100 by 100 frame just by pressing Ctrl Z, that is the undo key, or you can also undo by going into Edit and Undo. If you want to create a frame of a very specific size, you can hit F on your keyboard to get the frame tool and select what kind of frame you want to create from the drop down on the right side. But what if you don't see your size mentioned here? What if you want to create something very custom? That's quite easy to do. All you have to do is just click and drag. Clicking and dragging will create a frame according to how long you hold your mouse click for, and as soon as you let go of your left click, that is your frame size. Here we run into a problem where you might want to change this amount just by a pixel or two. We'll learn how to do that in just a second. Next, we have these two rectangles over here. It's easy to guess what these two are for. These are the portrait and the landscape toggles. So if we click one of these, this will rotate our frame accordingly. So like we'll go back to our iPhone example. If I change this frame to an iPhone Pro Max, this is currently in portrait mode. What if I want it to be in landscape mode? I'll just use this and it will rotate our frame into a landscape. Next to these two is we have the resize to fit button. I'll give a quick demonstration of what this does. If you don't understand what happens, it's fine. You need a little bit of knowledge about how layers work and the rectangle tool for this demonstration, but I'll just create a rectangle over here. And as you can see, my rectangle goes out of my frame. So what if I want my frame to fit this rectangle? All I have to do is click on this button, which is resize to fit, and it will fit my rectangle. And basically, if I have another rectangle, which is right here, and I want my frame to fit both of these rectangles, All I have to do is press that and it will fit both my rectangles. This tool helps you resize your frame to the contents of the frame. If you did not fully understand that, it's fine. We'll take a closer look at layers later on. Next, we have the X and Y position coordinates of our frame. Now, before we take a look at that, we need to understand a simple concept of coordinate geometry. If we go on the top right panel, there is a percentage number here. In my case, it's 80. Yours might vary according to the size of your display. But if we click on it, we have zoom options. You can mention a specific zoom percentage, or you can zoom in, zoom out, zoom to fit, which will fit your frame in your screen, zoom to 50%, zoom to 100%, and zoom to 200%. Those are all the zoom in and zoom out options. So I'll just zoom out and go back to 100%. You can try to remember all these shortcuts like plus for zooming in, minus for zooming out, shift 1 for zoom to fit, and shift 0 for zoom to 100%. These are helpful when you're working. A pro tip for moving around freely in Figma is to hold down Control on Windows and Command on your Mac and use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So I'm holding down Control right now, and now I will use my scroll wheel to zoom out, and I can zoom in by scrolling up. And that is usually how you want to zoom in and out instead of using the shortcuts. If you want to go left and right, up and down freely without changing any of your work, just hold down the middle mouse click on your mouse or spacebar. Our move tool will turn into a hand tool. The hand tool is also present in the top Figma toolbar, so you can just press H to get to that. But if you want to turn your move tool into your hand tool, you can just hold down spacebar, and as long as you have held down spacebar, our move tool will turn into a hand tool. Now, if you left click and drag around, you can move around your entire space freely without selecting or changing anything. Alright, back to the coordinate geometry concept. Figma gives you a workspace that is basically a large coordinate plane. Every location has a unique coordinate. If I zoom in all the way, you can see all these grids forming. These are pixels, and all of these are 1 pixel by 1 pixel wide. So the entire space is just a large coordinate plane. Every location has a unique coordinate. Every pixel has a unique coordinate. You can zoom in and out to see the plane. You can also move around, but every point is unique in terms of coordinates. So, to move an item from one place to another, you should know the coordinates of the final location that you want to move your item to. So, if we select our frame again, we can see that the x position of our frame is minus 217. What if I want to move this to 0, 0, which is the origin point of the coordinate plane? I can just put 0 in the x and 0 in the y, and now our position has been changed. The frame has now moved to the origin. Also, entering 0, 0 may have taken the frame out of your perspective. Just zoom out, find your frame, and zoom back in. After the x and y coordinates, we have the w and h properties. These are the width and the height properties. As I mentioned before, what if we want to create an artboard that is just 1 pixel more wider than the one we created using the freehand technique? So if we create a frame using freehand, and now this is my frame 2, we have the width and the height. What if I want this width to be something like 666? I can change that, and as you can see, that change happens there. What if I want the height to be 500? I can change that, and that change takes place. As you saw, I could change the width and the height independently of each other for frame 2. So I'll just go ahead, delete frame 2, come back to frame 1. And now what if I want to increase the size of my frame 1, but I want to maintain this ratio that I have created for the iPhone? So to do that, I have this constraint proportion options. If I press this toggle and turn it on, now if I change the width to say something like 500, you'll see that my height also increased according to what I entered in the width. That is how you can increase the size of your frame while also maintaining the proportions. So I'll just hit Ctrl Z twice and go back to my old frame. Moving on, we have the rotation option. Entering any value in this will change the rotation of my frame. If I enter 10, my frame rotates 10 degrees, and you can go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees as well. One thing I would say here is that if you want to create a landscape frame, instead of rotating a portrait frame 90 degrees, use this option. You'll understand why I want you to do this later on. Next, we have the corner radius property, which is this one. This is quite easy to understand. If I enter 50 in this, you'll see that my frame is now smoothed out by a radius of 50 degrees. What this does is basically create a circle of radius 50 degrees and then cuts off all the outer edges of the rectangle to smooth it out. If you want to create just one smooth corner or two or three, what I want you to do is click on the next option right here, which is independent corners, and then enter whatever value you want. So as you can see, this mentions what corner you're editing the radius of. So this is the top left corner. I can change this to 0. I can change the top right to something like 100. I can change the bottom right to something like 0 again, and the bottom left one to 100 again to create a design like this. You can experiment with this and create your own designs. And once you click on this corner option, you also get another option for corner smoothing. To show the changes for this, I have to zoom in. And now if I turn up the corner smoothing, as you can see, the circle becomes even more smoother. For iOS devices, it's somewhere around 60-61%. If you want, you can go ahead and smooth your corners as well. And finally, we have the clip content toggle. What this does is cut out anything that is outside the frame. So, as you saw in the rectangle example, if I draw a rectangle over here, the rectangle is big enough, but it's being cut out by the frame because clip content is turned on. If I uncheck this, you can see the whole rectangle again. Alright, that should be enough for this video. We will continue to explore the move tool and the scale tool and other tools in Figma in the future videos.